Yes, hello everyone, I hope you're doing well. Amazon documentary, we've all been waiting for it. The embargo is over. We can now finally talk about it and release this video. We have seen the first 2 episodes already, like a lot of influencers and people in the media, but we can now finally talk about it. If you guys haven't seen it, don't watch this video. Not often I'll say that. Go and watch the episode first and then come back to this one. If you've already watched it, stay tuned to this because we are going to be talking about the very first episode, which is called, and of course it has to be called that, Howay, the Revolution. Now, of course, the documentary takes a look back. It's narrated by Alan Shearer. It takes a look back at the owners coming into the ground. And of course, they'll say Yasser Al-Rumayyan talk about the ambition is to be number one. And they look back at the takeover, how we were in 19th place. We all remember those dark days with no wins. And then it switches dead quickly to the January transfer window, which of course we've seen Kieran Trippier, Bruno Gomes, Dan Burn and Chris Wood all sign. And of course then it turns to Yasser Al-Rumayyan, who the question was then asked to the chairman, does he have any influence on daily decisions at the club? And he says none whatsoever in the daily decisions. And then this was in around about 12 minutes of the episode. The then started to switch it to the Saudi trip. Of course, I was out in Saudi in the footage of the squad being at Yasser Al-Rumayyan's house. And then, of course, both the owners and Amanda were quite clearly saying in the documentary in the first episode that PIF is a separate identity to the Saudi state. Amanda said this on video. There's plenty of pushbacks, as we all know, from Amnesty, Premier League, and it was all about human rights. It was all about human rights in Saudi Arabia, despite the fact that the PIF were proven and the Premier League agreed that they are a separate identity to the Saudi state. So 20 minutes into the episode, and it's into January. Of course, Dan Ashworth is on here, admits, and this is where we get a little bit juicy here, into the Anthony Gordon stuff. Dan Ashworth admits that a bid was made in the summer last season, 2022, for Anthony Gordon, and then he was a top target for January. Everton wanted £50 million plus 10 million add-ons. Mirdad mentions financial fair play, stops Newcastle going crazy, spending all the time. Darren Eales thinks that 40 million with some add-ons is the best that Newcastle can because they can't breach financial fair play. So this goes back and forth during this episode as well. The first offer that Newcastle put in January was rejected by Everton, but Amanda Staveley's pictured in the car and is saying, let's hang on, let's call the bluff. Staveley and Mirdad are obviously out in Riyadh to meet with Yasser about the transfer. The club cannot overspend. That was key in this message. Amanda told Eales at the time, don't do it. The board won't do it. They won't do 45 plus 5 million. They will not do it. 30 minutes in, and the focus then switches to the Carabao Cup semi-final second leg. And of course, Sean Longstaff being a local lad, Sean says that Eddie has actually saved his career. Let me know what you think on that, please, in the comments. Less than 48 hours before the transfer window shuts and Newcastle get their man, Anthony Gordon. Newcastle's bluff came true. It worked. Newcastle signed him for around £40 million plus 5 million add-ons. Amanda and Mirdad aren't actually there on the day that Gordon is signed. However, they do FaceTime him and welcome him to the club as well, which is brilliant. Reaching the cup final, Amanda and Mirdad come into the dressing room, congratulate Eddie and congratulate the team. And of course, the highlights, Amazon highlights Sean being a local lad, who of course gets that double against Southampton and sends us into the Carabao Cup final. So 44 minutes into the episode, they visit Trippier at his home. You see his kids, you see his wife Charlotte talk about how she disliked Madrid and that they wanted to get back to England. Of course, Trippier is on less money. He's already said that publicly. He's on less money at Newcastle than he was at Atletico Madrid. He stayed quiet about it, didn't need to talk about it. He was confident that Newcastle would stay up. He says this club needs Champions League football. He was interviewed in one of the dressing rooms when Newcastle were hanging around 3rd, 4th, 5th in the league, if you remember at that time. Obviously, the focus was then onto the Liverpool game, which was coming up next. And of course, Yasser Al-Rumayyan did fly in, but we got beat 2-0, of course, if you remember. And that was the game Nick Hope was sent off as a car goes past me, as usual. Always does, yeah, when I'm filming as well. They know who I am. But that was the first episode Of course, if you haven't seen it, if you've seen any, if I've given you spoilers, apologies on that as well. We've already seen the second episode. We're not going to talk about that too much. Yeah, let me know how you see the first episode. What was intriguing for me personally was the whole Anthony Gordon. I would have liked to see probably a little bit more. You've seen Amanda getting stressed out, which I do like that side of seeing the boardroom being stressed, and because we don't get to see that. We get to see them all high and meeting fans and all that sort of stuff, and it's a real eye-opener into seeing how they work behind the scenes. Of course, the next episode, I don't want to give too much away, but you'll see more of the board in there. But please do let me know. I'm very intrigued what you think of that as well. We'll get to what we'll do on the next videos. We'll get one of the other lads who've seen it as well. Only a couple of people on NFTV have seen it. Not everybody has on NFTV. We've restricted it as well. And we'll do like a comparison. We'll go through the next episode, but it's a fantastic thing. It's, of course, it's money into the kitty. It's money that Newcastle are getting. Obviously, they talk a lot about it during the whole of this series. I know Eddie Howe isn't a massive fan of it. He's already said that publicly, but he knows that it's a good insight for fans to have a look at, and it's commercial revenue coming into the club as well. But very, very good start. And as I say, it's fantastic for us to see it. It would have been even more interesting if it had been under the Ashley years, because I would not have been happy, put it that way. But the whole thing for me was that episode was all around, predominantly for me, was around Anthony Gordon and the signing, and that was true that we were interested in him in 2022. But give us your thoughts, of course, and we'll do another one of these reactions next week. Ta-da, everyone.